Hey everyone, Shakarez or Kayle here, and today I wanted to talk about the Kayle nerfs that recently hit the PBE. If you're not aware of them, the first was that her scaling attack speed was nerfed, from 2.5 to 2%. This is a welcomed and smart change, as champions who usually build attack speed in their kit don't usually need that much base scaling. This basically means that your attack speed at level 18 without runes, masteries, items will be 0.85 instead of 0.9. The other nerf was the one that hit hard. Kayle's Righteous Fury AP ratio was nerfed from 0.4 to 0.2, basically halving the scaling damage on the skill. So first off, remember that this is PBE, so the changes might not be final. Secondly, remember that what is going to be said about Kayle is completely my opinion. Now, I know most of you will say I'm biased because she's my most played champion, however, I can look at the nerfs objectively. So, I don't agree with the second nerf, at all. And let me explain. First off, Riot stated more than once that they wanted to give Kayle a real weakness that other players can capitalize on. If you don't believe me, read what Riot Tune said about Kayle some weeks ago. Riot Pwiff even tweeted at me, and I quote, "It does come to a question, nerf Kayle or introduce weaknesses. Two separate concepts." Now, this nerf on Righteous Fury ends up being a straight nerf, not an introduced weakness. Riot probably didn't figure out any way of introducing a weakness, so they went with the old nerf hammer. So what would be better weaknesses that Riot could introduce over the Righteous Fury nerf? First off, her ultimate's cooldown. It was already increased in Twisted Treeline and Dominion some patches ago to accommodate the very frequent skirmishes that these two maps have. By giving Kayle a longer cooldown on her ultimate, you give her a weakness. The time window in which she doesn't have ultimate and can't save someone or herself is larger, so it's easier to play against her. Secondly, reduce the movement speed AP ratio on her Divine Blessing. While it was a very interesting buff to Kayle, putting ratios based on AP is a dangerous idea. You end up giving too much utility to a heavy AP carry, and this is why you see a lot of Lulu being played as well. Thirdly, an idea that I had but could be hard to implement, then again I'm not a game designer, would be to increase the overall cooldown on Righteous Fury. The problem right now is that with just 20 to 30% CDR, the downtime on Righteous Fury is only 1 to 2 seconds. And if you reach higher levels of CDR, you won't even have a downtime on Righteous Fury, allowing Kayle to be ranged all the time. Now this could be changed into something like a 2-second downtime with max CDR, so Kayle couldn't always be auto-attacking from range. However, this would have to be arranged, since it would mean a 10-second downtime without CDR, meaning her early laning phase would be very poor, as she would have to go into melee range to last hit frequently. I was actually thinking in maybe adding something like a specific 20% CDR cap to Righteous Fury, meaning she would have a 6-second downtime without CDR and a 2-second downtime with CDR. However, I don't really know if this is doable. Again, I'm not a game designer. Okay, on to accepting the nerf, and probably it will go through, so let's look at Kayle builds. I've been heavily testing Kayle on the PBE, and I've been able to figure something out. I did the usual Runaan's build, the Lich Bane build, and a kind of on-hit damage Kayle build to test out the new Blade of the Rain King. It's very difficult to take conclusions from the PBE, as I get matched constantly with bronze, silver, gold players, so the result is usually a stomp. I'm usually ahead, so it's hard to figure out if the nerfs are hitting Kayle hard or not. Let's start with the Runaan's build. The ever so popular build that brought Kayle back into competitive play is probably the most affected by the nerfs. It's a heavy attack speed build that relies a lot on Righteous Fury's damage. To put things into perspective, I did some maths. I didn't include Archmage or stuff like Executioner, Blade Weaving, Spell Weaving, or Penetration, because they're all common factors on both pre and post nerf builds. They also make my job a bit harder. So what you're looking at right now is a full build Kayle with the Runaan's Hurricane build, assuming those 6 items are listed on the left side. The differences are obvious. We're talking about less 100 damage per auto attack. And remember, I'm not taking into account resistances and penetration. I think that this build might not be seeing more competitive play, unless the Lich Bane is incorporated to the build, but that would mean no defensive items for Kayle. Onto the Lich Bane build, and probably the least affected by the changes. This build relies mainly on bursting people down using Lich Bane procs with Righteous Fury. While I could see the damage differences with the nerfs, I could still burst people down with ease. If these nerfs go through, I think that this will be the way to build Kayle. What about other alternatives? The other build I tried was a heavy on-hit build, with Nashor's Tooth, Bladed Druid King, Runaan Hurricane, Trinity Force, and a defensive item. It honestly didn't feel that bad, and the new blade does go quite well on Kayle. It does feel like a weird build, however. I'm not sure if this can work outside of the jungle. So yeah, that's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my rundown on the Kayle nerfs. I'll be pushing for more content once I get rid of my boring exam on Friday, and I'll see you guys in the Rift. Shakarez signing out.